I've been a cardomancer for all of my life, and that is when you divine with cards. I'm a tarot master, so what that means is that I am fluent in all 5 systems. There is a video I released on the history of tarot and all that complexity. But roughly, let's go over the 5 systems of tarot. So this is going to sound really weird to people that are just starting out, but all I can do is either answer questions or make more videos on this subject. All right, so let's get started. So the first one is going to be this is not in order, this is actually the youngest, but the one that's most everywhere and it's all around the globe, the one that's the most famous is the Rider-Waite deck. And I can do a video on the history of it and all, which I will. So this is the Rider-Waite. So if you don't recognize it yet, I'll pull out a major arcana and you will recognize it. So this is Rider-Waite, all right? Very interesting, the whole history on each one of these. Now this is the youngest, and the creator of this really got inspiration from TDM, which precedes that. So let's go to the next one. Again, this is not in chronological order because Rider-Waite would be, it's the last, right? The other system is TDM, which is Tarot du Marseille, Tarot du Marseille, and this is the most, I guess, elite or fancy of all the tarot decks. I shouldn't say decks, systems, because each of these systems have many decks. And then we'll get into what spin-offs came from these systems and all of that, right? But originally, the 5 systems. So this would be TDM, and this is, most people find it very, very hard to read. It is the most complicated to read because of the, it's not all pictures. So this would be that, right? And this is what inspired the Rider-Waite. Now, this was not the first either. The next one we have is, do I have it with me? Visconti Sforza. So there was a Visconti and then a Visconti Sforza. And that has a whole history of family and politics and all of that. But the Visconti Sforza would be the first deck, sort of. It was the first deck. In order of the 5 systems, it would be the first created, right? So chronologically, Visconti Sforza would be the first one. I do have a copy of it. Let me go get it. All right. So this would be the Visconti Sforza. It is, as you can see, Tarot du Marseille came out, after this. And you can see the influence of this in this. Now, there's one, I can't find the copy of it, but it's Thoth, and that was created by Crowley when, Waite, the Rider-Waite deck simultaneously. So he was creating one, and Crowley was creating Thoth, which, those are the 2 most modern, right? But Thoth is not as popular as Rider-Waite. So, okay, so there's one more system, and this one is, where do I have it? Oh, here it is in front of me. Atelier. This comes from the first man, which, I'll do a history video on it, but this comes from the first man that ever used a card deck for divination. So this is actually the original, not this deck itself, but this system, right? Why do I say that? So not throw you off. Well, because we're going to talk about reprints. We're going to talk about, deck style, who printed what in what order, what country, what decade, reprints and reprints. Don't confuse those with other kinds of decks that you see everywhere with other themes in it. We'll get into what those are and how to categorize tarot. But as far as the classics, we're going to call these the classics. So it's the 5 systems. Every other deck in the world ever created came from one of these systems. So the Tarot du Massé, the Visconti Sforza, and the Rider-Waite, obviously, and Thoth. The reason why those are really, its origin is a game called Tarocchi, which, oddly enough, every form of cartomancy in the world used for divination originated with a game. But the one that has its origin in strictly divination is this one. So this should be the most famous. This should be the one that is, the one that is over and over and over used, and all the decks based on it, because this is what jumped from a game to divination. So it's not in chronological order, because this story goes very odd in history. Yes, Rider-Waite and Thoth, Crowley's Thoth. Yes, those are the youngest. The oldest, would be this one. And there's an odd story about these two. But anyway, roughly that would be it. So those are the 5 systems. If you can read, and they are not the same, you can pick up the Sun card in Rider-Waite, and it is not the same meaning as, TDM. Now there's this debate with each one of these systems. Excuse me. So someone who has been reading TDM for decades, I can tell you, this is my favorite system, by the way. I love this one so much. And of course, I use all of them in my work. But I would say TDM is my favorite. And one of the things that's very important to note here is that right now, if you go study TDM, there's only 2 options from 2 authors, and there's a lot of debate with that. People think that's the meaning. You read, I read, for example, something that predates that, which is the classic European. It even goes back into medieval, and even the Dark Ages. So in other words, there's some Victorian and Edwardian era twists in there, but a lot is going to be medieval and even before the medieval period. So very interesting on divination meanings, because when this was being created, yes, it's the spin-off of the game, but when you got to realize when this became divinatory and this started to become divinatory and famous and popular and the whole thing, because there's just so much in history we're skipping, they went back all the way to even meanings embedded in ancient Egypt, which that's why Thoth, right, if you know the history. So it's very confusing there. It takes like a global trip with history on numerology and spin-offs and things into Greek mythology and all these things. So that's why I'm saying to you, you can't just say, oh, I learned the Rider-Waite and I'm like an expert on all that. No, they are not the same thing. If you know what you're doing, if you're talking to master tarotists who've been reading for decades, we know that it is just not even close, not the same. You have the same basic principles, but it's definitely not the same, especially when you're getting into something like this. And this spun a twist on a lot of the things that came after it too, which is more confusing. Anyway, those are the 5 systems, and I'm going to make another video. If you like this content, let me know, guys, because time is precious. So if you're not finding it useful, I will make my regular content. But I figured it would be fun to show you guys that. So the next video that I'm going to make is specifically looking into what the decks that continued to spin off of these.